Hello there, this is Matthew Myth, reporting to you. Well, not really much of a report this time, nothing too crazy. Actually, I wanted to talk about something that is easygoing and fun and something that I enjoy myself. I'm sure most of all of you do as well, and that is the different mediums of ways in which we experience film and cinema. I want to talk about for a little bit just the modes that we use to take in the world through our eyeballs, and the interesting and fun aspects of them, and also maybe nothing negative. I don't see how something like that could have really any negatives. It's more just ways in which we would, I don't know, it's like perspective more than truth. Sometimes truth can feel like, take it or leave it. But, so, let's jump right into it. Let's start with, where should we begin? I mean, I love the older stuff, honestly, more than anything. Let's see, let's start with, I would say, records. Like, old records. Or, like the phonograph, stuff like that. That was an early precursor to what we would experience. Imagine if someone who just had no television or anything, maybe never even been to the cinemas. Cause damn, I wish I had a fact checker here. When was the first cinema opened? I'm guessing, I don't know if it was in America or France. They've always had a big film industry. Anyways, I remember finding out when I was a kid, my grandmother used to be a dance teacher. And one of the things she told me was how they would record records. They could record sound live, and the needle was a certain type of needle that you'd have. I'm not sure the phonograph was different or just the needle, or if it was a whole different mechanism. I'm guessing it would probably be a whole different thing than just like a regular player of some kind. But the needle would actually carve into the record, and you could see the carving of the record coming out in like one big piece, like a big stream of the whatever those records are made out of. Man, I really should have these materials down, but I'm honestly diving into it, so we can all check the facts after the fact. But for right now, let's keep going. So yeah, the phonograph, really interesting. Records, I grew up listening to records. The idea of, I don't know if you've ever gotten really stoned and looked at a record, how amazing it is that it fits in the groove. The interesting difference between records and CDs, to skip ahead for a second, is that the laser disc works from the inside out to the outside edge of the disc, whereas the old records start from the outside and work their way in. Somehow as a kid, I just knew instinctively to play, because family had record players and stuff, and I knew instinctively to play the record, just put it on the first one. It made sense, that's the first thing, but there must be some reason why it's easier for the laser to read it from the outside, from the inside out. I don't know. It's an interesting little fact there, but it's one fact I do know. But so then you think about silent movies, and that must be an interesting concept, because people these days, I don't think could even handle that, watching something with no sound really, except for maybe someone. I know originally they would have people inside the theaters playing the piano. They would have like a script of what they would play to the music. That must have been an interesting job. I mean, it's not always easy getting jobs or getting gigs as musicians, but if you can sit in a movie theater and play, granted you're playing the same thing over and over again, but that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to entertainment and repetition. I've seen a lot of artists, people I don't know and people that I do know. I've seen them all, at some point get sick of playing the same music. I think, to me personally, the main goal would be to play something that wouldn't make you sort of, like, oh god, I gotta do that again. it's encouraging when you can feel excitement for what you do, of course. But not to digress. So moving on, let's see. So how would you handle the silent film era? I mean, like most people, I wonder, were people anxious to have sound in the movies, or it was just like, hey, we can do this now, this is cool? People didn't know any different, and then then you start having the talkies, I love how that was like a thing, like a phrase for a time, and now it's just a historical moment. And that's what's interesting with this kind of stuff, is that there are certain points where, in time and history, where we don't really like live up to how, like, for right now things are interesting and we have some things that are popular, but in the future from right now, those kinds of, some of these things aren't going to make it, like ideas, words, for, just so many different variations of stuff that are like that. And I don't know why, but we keep progressing. I mean, I don't know, should we know why we progress, where we're going to? I don't know if there's really a place, like a destination. It just keeps increasing, but it almost seems like it's controlled, but at the same time, like someone's given us too much power and we're just kind of running rampant. So let's see. Yeah, the talkies were invented. People, that was kind of like taking vaudeville, the stage acting, plays, stuff like that, and bringing that to people sitting in theaters. And we still have those to this day. And I don't know how comfortable the chairs used to be back then, but right now I know that the the comfortability at theaters is pretty crazy. Man, there's something about the early 20th century that has me hypnotized for some time, for some reason. To be totally honest, I grew up listening to the old radio dramas, and Sherlock Holmes and The Shadow, the two prominent ones. I've honestly never really explored much outside of that, and like Philip Marlowe and some comedy, some interesting comedy stuff. Some of it isn't actually as impressive as I would have thought when I first got into it as a kid, because I was listening to some of the so-called most prestigious productions. But back then it was just radio. They put a lot of effects into things, and the stories just weren't that dynamic necessarily. I think a lot of times it was more or less the mood that would sell it. So, while this cinema stuff is going on, the radio is still pretty much thriving until the 50s. And then once television came in the mid to late 50s, somewhere in there, right? Television kind of knocked radio out for, when did they stop doing radio dramas? Must have been probably the 50s or 60s, I would guess. And, well, it's interesting, like I was saying, things come and go, and there's trends. What might be popular in the zeitgeist in one way might not be. Well, let's see, is the zeitgeist more about what people like, or is it more about what society, I guess, tells us to like? Because you think about it, society has this, has become driven by pop and things like pop culture. Now, pop music, pop culture, it's like become synonymous. There isn't really much difference. It's all blending into one. And that really, I think, started probably in the 50s and 60s as well. There's major changes and stuff. And I mean, it's interesting to see how much change happened technologically in entertainment, but you gotta remember the 50s is also when there was the huge uptick in UFO, or now the infamous UAPs, where people are, there's all these reports, all this stuff going on, and I mean, even in the 50s and 60s, I remember in my family talking about, they lived near a military base at the time, and they talked about seeing like a UFO in the military base and some crazy shit like that. So we keep moving forward, and we look at how we have television, and television is very interesting because it connects us into our homes. It's taking that, what would you say, the that concept of the cinema into your house, and that's exciting, but it's also, it's such like a subtle thing that really happened, I guess you could say, if you think about it, because the concept of bringing things into your home is, I mean, Ray Bradbury in one of his books talked about, there's like a wall that was like some type of, how did he describe it in the book? I believe it was in his story, the one about the book burnings, Fahrenheit 451, and they had like a wall in the story, and this book was written in the 60s, I believe. There's like a wall of sound and like video and stuff like that. It's just very much a futuristic type of concept to be introduced into our lives, and we've grown up with it. And it's kind of like with school indoctrination. A teacher was taught to read a book, and then they teach the children to read the book, and it just keeps going and going and going, and that's where we're at now. I mean, it's like we let things go so far that if we talk down on certain things, we're also including ourselves. I mean, I have a TV in my living room. It seems very strange to, if I were to look at everything, not in the sense of how I need it, but just looking at it in the perspective of what it is. You look in the room, you just see chairs and stuff, like, especially if they're unoccupied. It's kind of like, it's just strange to see something there for a human. We invented it for ourselves to sit down on, and a TV, it's like it's replaced the fireplace. I've always thought, anyways. People used to stare at the fire, and fire is alchemically and stuff like that connected to the eyes. The eyes are connected to the concept of fire. It's all interconnected there, and we take it for granted being watchers, being observers. As Jim Morrison said, the spectator is what did he say? It's like a dying, well, basically back in the 60s, you sit in a movie theater and it's just people watch movies more than on TV, I'm assuming, and you see them and they're like, you're just sitting in a theater, it's just your eyeballs are like, you're feeding your eyeballs, and I have a great restlessness where I can only sit and watch something for so long. I have to do stuff. I gotta move around. I usually only have the TV on as like a background noise if I'm feeling it, but it's just something if it's too quiet or something, if I don't feel like enjoying the quiet, I do enjoy the quiet, but sometimes there's like a restlessness, and it doesn't come from being quiet within where I am. It's more like I can hear the noise of the world outside, and it's quiet in here in my home. And it's kind of like you feel like you need to match a noise, or you have like a noisy neighbor or something. Oh, anyways, the TV, it's a technology that's invaded our lives, and in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad, I think, from my personal perspective. I mean, we all know that. It's like another one of those things like smoking or drinking. The excessive things is bad, but your eyeball, sitting somewhere watching something isn't really that unhealthy compared to other things you could do. But now they have like commercials where it shows someone on on TV watching someone on TV. It's like we're just the whole meta stuff, which I love that concept, but it's meta commentary. But with being able to stream things in our homes and stuff, it's interesting how what's interesting about digital is that it kind of relates in a weird way back to VHS, and this is really what inspired me to want to talk about this topic in the beginning, was that those are the main forms and modes that we use. But one thing I love personally that I grew up with is VHS tapes, and now more and more it's good to have hard copies of things, and it feels good to have something you really care about. And then it's like, well, it's just a movie. I mean, I don't really care about this, but it's not gonna necessarily save a life. But at the same time, it's nice to have something that, especially if it's something that I grew up with and I really like. It's like kind of like a memento. But the thing is, what's so cool about it is that what I'll do sometimes, I'll just put in like a VHS and just pick up where it left off. And you can only do that now with digital. You can pick up where you left off. Where I remember some DVDs you could shut it off and turn it back on, some DVD players I should say, and it would come back on. It would pick up where it left off. But if you took the DVD out or whatever, so it's, I don't know, something about the VHS world of that, the hard copy, and it's cool. You just have it, you just pop it right in, you push it right into the machine. Of course, you have this big bulky machine now. You can just have a Fire Stick. It's interesting how we want things to be so compact. We literally have watches and phones that are so thin and ultra lightweight. We can do anything we want with them, but it's like it's like we want to have, it's like cars are getting kind of bulkier in a funny way. Some of them, they're either super small or they're like oversized. And there's not really much mid-sized stuff. It seems like everything's always like a truck or a hatchback or something, or you're just driving a roller skate. It's like there's no in between anymore, really. The SUVs and stuff. And it's funny how the stuff that we take out into the world with us is getting bigger. Our mugs, that people have, mainly I see women with those, the Coach cups or whatever. They have like the lid and the straw, or that's like a thing. You gotta have your beverage and stuff. I mean, I lived in Arizona for like a hot minute, and I say hot as in I was traumatized by that heat, where I don't think I really ever, if I leave the house for more than an hour, if I think I'm leaving for more than an hour, I will bring water with me, which as a kid, when I was up until that point in my life, I don't think I ever did. I must have been living such a dehydrated life. I don't know. You can't overhydrate necessarily unless you really really try. But so I find it interesting. I think I've used that word a lot. Sorry. The way in which things have progressed and how we look at them now. People look at VHS and DVDs even as like old-fashioned. It's all Blu-ray now and things like that. And even Blu-rays, like, well, you must really like that if you bought it on Blu-ray. If you really want to collect that. It's like a collector's item is just having something that would be normal all the time. And I love, I guess so. I have like a thing with packaging. If I see an incredible package, I can't help but buy it. The things I drink, the things I eat, the things I buy, the things I wear. It's like a lot of it is, in some sense, based on my vibration. I guess that's good sales, right? But it's like a movie case. You see a movie case and you like the way the movie case looks, and man, some stuff's so cool. I feel like I just want to watch a movie just by looking at the case sometimes. I'm like, man, I just want to check that out. I missed that, or it'll bring me into it when I saw something one time, right? And so what's really cool about the modern time, because not to be a total naysayer, but it is pretty incredible what we've accomplished. Our ability to access things and have everything right there at our fingertips. Man, it's crazy. I really have a strange aversion to it. I don't even have cable, but I just don't. I guess I'm kind of frugal with certain things, and I feel like maybe if I was the kind of person that really wanted to have certain stuff, I would just have it. But I know it's not, it's so commonplace that, I wonder, like, me not having certain things, does that kind of eliminate chances with people? You think that unconsciously they know, like, oh, he doesn't have cable or Wi-Fi. Well, I had Wi-Fi for a bit, but I was stealing. I just don't. Oh man, I have a phone that has so much power, and I can send things from my phone to the TV and things like that. I don't see I get it. It's functional. It's cool. I should spend the extra money on it, I guess. But I've learned to live without, and I noticed when I had the supremest of Wi-Fi connections for like a period of time, I was way more distracted and I couldn't focus as much, and I would rather just have put on something on my laptop and watched it on my TV and just relaxed. And I was still being creative, but I just didn't feel as focused or disciplined. That's just me, though. That's just my own deficiency in that sense. But that temptation of always having that there, it's when I work, if I'm working alone, I'm doing like a craft thing, working with my hands or whatever, I might choose to just work and just be in my own head and enjoy the moment, or I might like to enhance the moment or fall into it differently and listen to a podcast or music or something, whatever I'm in the mood for, some kind of news thing or something. And that's just like that's just for my own curiosity. But I do try to be vigilant and not stuffing my head with things all the time. If you really want to look into the philosophical, poetic nature of the eyeball itself, which I think has a huge relationship to obviously our perception and things, and it's kind of crazy. I couldn't imagine not having my sight. For how this world is, you'd think that, I don't know how many blind people there are, but God, I don't come across enough to feel like this world accommodates much for it. I mean, a blind person can't go to the movies, do they? I don't know. Could. Does that mean they will? I don't know. I feel like I need to meet some different people, learn some stuff. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the perspective of how we infuse our minds with entertainment? There's so many minute things too. With cars, you can get in and your phone syncs or something. I'm even old-fashioned that. I like the old cigarette lighter in the car connector. That's me. I'll take that. That's what I like to do. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the future of technology? Where do you think we're going with this? I could probably go on and ramble on somewhere, but I'll cool it for now. I think I don't know. Just wanted to put that out there. What the hell is going on? Where are we going with technology? How do we perceive things? I guess that's really my main concern with the world that I live in. Like I was saying about the whole furniture and all that. It's like the same thing with a room. You see a room with the TV on. It's like a room with the TV on with no one watching. It's kind of like a modern Zen version of if a tree falls in the forest. Does anyone and no one's there to hear it? Does that make a sound? It's kind of like that. If a TV's on and no one's watching, we are. If you look up, or if you're up in the sky and you look down at a city, it looks like a motherboard, right? It looks like a computer. I always found that fascinating too. It's just all about perspective and how you look at things, right? And I don't see a change in things to come in the sense of stopping. I see a change to come as in the sense that it's going to be rapid fire. They're already saying that in the next, by 2030, our lives are going to be completely different. So if you're enjoying the old conveniences of life, then you're in the minority, because people are giving up everything to the future, to their technology. And integration, I don't think it's such a bad thing, but it seems like it's going to be an expensive future. Like you're going to have, like if you can't make a certain amount of money, it's going to be like those movies where the super poor people that use old technologies are there, and the elite, clean people of the future live up here, and that's where it seems like it's heading. I mean, one prophecy I remember hearing from someone like on an old radio show or something, Coast to Coast AM or something. One prophet was talking about everything becoming very binary, in the sense of so dualized that people are, so dualized that it's like just you either wear a red or a white robe or something. It's just very so-called black and white, ones and zeros. And I don't know, some people say that is the way to God or to spirit, by honoring duality and eliminating expression. The thing is, some forces in this world, it seems like they're trying to eliminate creativity and individuality in a particular manner, where it is kind of like eroding certain concepts that might be helpful to humanity, morality to some extent, and it's trying to replace them. In other senses, there's actually a few things going on. There's like the so-called, maybe you could even say like satanic, luciferic form of things in the world, where they're also vying to replace, coming from the old pagan Wiccan world is really where that still comes from, I feel. There's just a lot of factions of people that are trying to rewrite our history and time and give us a new compass to direct ourselves in. But how do we need to be discerning, but also with the way technology is, they're eliminating how many available things. Eventually things like a VHS player are going to be extinct. You won't be able to watch a movie on a VHS in a nostalgic format. Is this a warning? I don't know. Is this an awakening? Who knows? But just, do your thing. Enjoy.